It was quite an elaborate recollection to say that he saw it in that brief moment. Winfred had a talent for drawing and drew a believable sketch of the unique sword. The tip of the blade was broken like this. I was surprised because it was the first time I had seen a sword like that. Alexia's expression froze. It was a sword that looked familiar. This sword is the dagger of the heir. The heir family had a long history as a family of knights. They possessed a special skill with the sword that allowed them to wield both long and short swords with both hands. Bayfold heir died during the betrayal 10 years ago, and the only one left is his younger brother. Cloud heir. The image of him with grey hair and brown eyes came to mind. She had visited Bayfold, who served in the Imperial Guard with her, several times, so that image remained vaguely in her memory. I don't know who the informant is, but what the Crown Prince said may be true. Alexia closed her eyes in silence. This was because the image of his former comrade, who risked his life to protect his master, who had sworn lifelong loyalty to him, came to mind. What are you thinking? When Alexia didn't say anything, Winfred, feeling somewhat frustrated, opened his mouth. Oh, no. I was thinking that what the informant said might be true. A murderer who became a traitor overnight and wielded the dagger of the missing heir family. No matter how much I thought about it, it was very suspicious. Did the person who gave you the information say anything else, Your Highness? What more can be said? Oh. He said that they would keep trying until he returned to the Imperial Castle. Alexia frowned. That was also very reliable information. Considering Byron's temperament, it was quite possible. She was lost in thought, rubbing her chin, wondering what he was thinking so deeply about. Byron was not in a good mood. As he raised the glass to his lips, the burning intensity of his eyes was reminiscent of the sparks that flow from a flame. However, the image of him sitting comfortably in an armchair, legs crossed, was as beautiful as a photograph. Why haven't you heard anything yet, Cloud? Do you go out somewhere every night? It had been quite some time since he ordered the killing of his nephew, whose face he can't even remember because he saw him so long ago. The journey to be named Crown Prince would soon come to an end, and nephew Winfred would soon return to the Imperial Castle. Byron put a lot of strength into his left hand. He was so angry that he couldn't bear it. The Crown Prince of the Felis Empire was visiting Mount Primus, a high mountain at the western end of the empire, before being named Crown Prince. The mountain was named after the empire's first emperor, Primus Arpavitus Felis. Primus, the founder of a great empire, disappeared at the top of Mount Primus before passing away. He left a will declaring that he would become the guardian deity of the empire and protect it. Descendants who could not even find his remains believed that Primus had truly become the guardian deity of the empire. The prince who would become crown prince could only be appointed as crown prince after visiting Primus, the guardian deity of the empire, and performing a ceremony. From his birth, that position, the position of the next emperor, was Byron's. He firmly believed that one day he would embark on a journey to find Mount Primus. In the end, he failed to become crown prince. It was his younger brother, Hiram, who undertook the journey. He couldn't even stand it, and this time, not even his son Winfred. Was he not returning to the imperial palace after going through the ceremony of becoming crown prince, which he was never able to perform? He felt as if a fire was burning inside him, burning all his organs. He quickly poured the alcohol from his glass to smother the flames. I'm sorry, my lord. Security is so tight that we rarely get the chance. Cloud lowered his head with a voice whose thoughts were unknown. In fact, it went without saying that they found Winfred sneaking away after escaping from the knights, but they couldn't get rid of him. At best, it only made Byron even angrier. He couldn't figure out where the prince who was clearly in front of him had disappeared. If he had used movement magic, there would have been at least a trace of him left, but he couldn't even find it. It was either rising towards the sky or falling to the ground. Something suddenly flew towards Cloud while he was deep in contemplation, remembering that mysterious moment. With the wine glass in his hand, it was Byron who threw it. He could have easily avoided it, but he didn't. Because if he did, he would get angrier and ask if she was ignoring him. Kill him before he returns to the imperial palace. I can't stand to see him become crown prince, even if I die. It was a bonus that he was told not to come back if he couldn't kill him. Even though his forehead was torn and bleeding, Cloud bowed his head with a loyal expression without even blinking. Yes, my lord. He would follow his orders. That was it. Cloud was holding his breath in a dark alley, staring at the building where the prince was staying. It was a really tough defense. It was impossible to take down all the knights surrounding the building's fence, and it was also difficult to sneak in without them. This was because there were too many watchful eyes. I wish you could escape once more. Then you won't miss that opportunity this time. The young prince must have sensed that someone was trying to take his life, and since that day he has remained silent. Except in his official appearances. So Cloud was just upset. My situation is really frustrating. Cloud scoffed at himself. Honestly, it was as obvious as seeing fire what the end of this rebellion would be. Byron was greedy and foolish. Honestly, it wasn't a bad idea. However, he had to clarify that he only did what was convenient for him. It was not wise. He felt like he knew why the emperor had chosen his younger brother over him, although it would be dishonest if he were disloyal. Even if this rebellion succeeded and Byron was crowned emperor, the problem was what would happen next. How long would the reign of the foolish emperor last? Was Byron really a man worth risking his life for? No, I shouldn't think like that. Cloud erased the useless thoughts floating in his head. Considering his honest brother, Bayfold, who sacrificed his life, this shouldn't have happened. What had to be done now was to kill the young prince. It was then. Hey, the captain of the guard is telling everyone to gather together. That? Why suddenly at this time of night? The knights surrounding the building were making a lot of noise. Cloud pricked up his ears and focused on his conversation. You don't know. I only give you an order. It's urgent, so they ask everyone to come, except the two guarding the door. I didn't know what the situation was, but it was an opportunity that didn't come around often, or might never come again. Everyone except the two gentlemen guarding the door had disappeared into the building. There is no time to hesitate. He didn't know why this opportunity had suddenly presented itself to him, but it was time to act quickly. I didn't know when he would return. He sneaked around the back of the building, jumped over the high wall, and infiltrated the mansion. It seemed that everyone in the building, save the minimal number of security forces, had responded to the guard captain's call. It was unclear which room the prince was staying in, but all he had to do was find the most luxurious and largest room and the room with the highest security. Cloud was wandering around looking for such a room, and soon discovered that several knights were guarding the large and magnificent door. There it is. Cloud bit his lip in nervousness, took a mask out of his pocket, covered his nose and mouth, and set fire to dry grass of unknown origin. The dry grass soon began to emit suspicious-colored smoke. Cloud carefully tossed the bunch of herbs towards the knights. They choked on the sudden puff of smoke and soon fell to the ground. They lost consciousness for a moment due to the smoke from the poisonous plant. Thinking things were going too well, Cloud opened a grand tour. In search of the prince who must have fallen asleep in a state of defenselessness. However, the person who greeted him upon entering the room was not the prince. It's been a while. Cloud Air. Dexon. It was Alexia Dexon, looking at him with a sinister expression. Cloud suddenly realized that he was surrounded by knights and closed his eyes for a moment. Was it a trap? Have you already discovered it? It seems like your brain is rusty. Or did you fall into it knowing it was a trap? At Alexia's sneer, Cloud gritted his teeth and put his hand on his waist. He was going to draw his sword. Stop fooling around, Cloud. I know you are an excellent knight, but do you think you can defeat all these people? If you remember me, I'm a kid from 10 years ago, right? My brain may be rusty, but if I don't pay attention, I won't know if my skills are better than 10 years ago, Cloud said as he carefully took out his long sword. He felt like he couldn't keep his sanity if he didn't show off. Come all at once. Due to Cloud's momentum, the knights around him hesitated. They were waiting for Alexia's order. Be careful. He is not an easy person. Alexia also unsheathed her sword and spoke in a solemn voice. It was the signal to attack. 3 knights drew their swords at once and rushed at him,